All right, Chris.
Welcome on the show.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, the reason why we brought you on the show is you have a beautiful story and a beautiful message about music.
I sure do. I feel so privileged. I actually thought I was tone deaf until 20 years ago. And I had a 2-month fight with a flyer. It said, nobody is tone deaf, and I didn't believe this at all. And this was an invitation by Susan Osborne, who's a wonderful musician, wonderful singer, beautiful human being. And every time I looked at that flyer, I'd get mad. I'd say, I'm not going to that workshop. And I'd put it in my pocketbook. Notice I didn't throw it away, right? I put it in my pocketbook. I'd open my pocketbook and I'd say, oh, I am not going to that workshop. The day before the workshop, I called and I figured, it's too late, right? So I called and said, okay, it's too late to register for the workshop. Oh no, come on over, we've got a space for you. And it was like, well, I don't think I can do that. I'm kind of busy and I think I have to do my taxes. I was like, what? So I hung up and thought, oh darn, I'm not off the hook yet. So okay, if I get up without my alarm clock, I'll go. So of course, I woke up without my alarm clock. And the next morning it was like, okay, I'll get dressed, but I don't have to go. I'll go over, but I don't have to go in. Okay, I'll go in, but I don't have to stay. Well, I went in there and this angel started singing. And it was like, oh, wow, I want to do that. And after 2 days, I came home from her workshop, having thought I was tone deaf for all those years, and joined our summer choir.
Explain what tone deafness is for people that don't, like you can't hear pitch.
Well, that's what people think.
And you can't sing
that
it
back?
That
they might hear the songs, but what they hear in their head and what comes out of their mouth is entirely different.
Right.
Now, part of the reason for that, most people don't realize that right here, and this is actually, for anybody that knows the Indian chakra system, this is the area of control right here in the solar plexus. In there, there's a nerve that actually connects to the vocal cords. So when you get scared or nervous and upset, you tighten this area. And when you do that, you tighten your vocal cords. And people are so often so anxious to make beautiful music or beautiful sounds come out that they get nervous and they tighten. So instead of what comes out is ugly and then they give it up. Well, if you ever go to hear singers, especially opera singers, warming up, it sounds terrible. You wouldn't believe that these are the stars that are going to be singing on
Actually,
TV.
I know what you're talking about because Enrique Iglesias, the singer,
right.
was doing warm-ups, and he was terrible.
Right.
And he was playing with his voice.
Yes.
And then someone took that warm-up and they started circulating it that this guy is terrible. And then he had to prove that he's not.
Right.
But he was warming up his voice.
Right, and that's what you do.
And Mariah Carey too. And early in the morning, it's tough for her to sing.
Oh, sure, sure. And also,
so it's a muscle.
Right. It's many things. It's muscle. It's the messages that you got. Parents and teachers don't realize how powerful they are sometimes. And all a teacher has to say is, oh, you're not a soprano. You go over there with the altos. Now, there's certainly nothing wrong with being an alto, but if you're a child and you're trying out for a chorus and you get that hand gesture and the tone of voice that says, well, you're not a soprano, some people interpret that as, oh, well, you're not good enough to be a soprano. You go over there with the altos. And so right away they think, oh, I'm not good enough. And they begin to shut down their voices. And you get a few of those things piled on top of the other, and soon they just close off. And so you have to go through a lot of ugly sounds before you get to the part where you can free up your voice enough to sing again. And just in that 2-day workshop, I was able to do that.
Well, talk about where you have found how you reconnect your voice and your soul. Talk about that whole theory, that whole concept.
Sure.
I know you touched on how you went to a workshop, but what does that mean to you and people that are looking to reconnect?
Well, you know, so often our society has been really valuing the intellect. And of course, it's wonderful to have a good intellect and a good mind. But along with that, we need our heart. And when you're singing, making music, making art, you connect the head and the heart. And when you have these two parts working together, it's kind of like walking on both legs instead of hopping along on one leg. And music, art, dance, these things really help connect that. I believe they've also done a lot of studies. If you check out Heart Math Solution, they talk about how our real intelligence is in our heart. And one of the ways they discovered this was that when they did heart transplants, once they hooked up the plumbing, the heart started to beat. Now, this was very contrary to what people believed, that our minds sent a nerve impulse to our heart, and that's what made it beat. But what they found when they did these heart transplants, the heart would start beating automatically without the nerves being reconnected.
Really?
Yeah, isn't that awesome?
So the heart has its own memory.
The heart has
Its own
intelligence,
soul, its own intelligence.
and, yeah. And many people believe that this really is where our intelligence is.
So they didn't have to jumpstart these hearts? They just started beating on their own?
Apparently not. Once they connected them, that was all it took. And yeah, I just think that's awesome. And another thing, sort of aside, when they would transfer a heart, I mean, they had a case where this musician, classically trained musician, very sophisticated lady, was given the heart of someone else, and all of a sudden she started craving French fries and hot dogs, which was something she never ate before.
I've heard of
and
stuff
beer.
like that, yeah.
Right. And what they found out was the heart came from a trucker who was always on the road eating
That's pretty
French
funny.
fries, beer, and hot dogs. And so eventually the heart became her own, but it was like a connection again with that soul that gave her the heart. You know, and so really we're all so connected. And one of the things that's so powerful about music is that it transcends all races, nationalities, every issue that we have. It transcends that because, again, the heart connection. We connect our heads and our hearts, we connect our heart to each other's heart.